An amazing Saturday for Duke Athletics as the basketball team improves to 10-0 on the season with a big win at Michigan State, and Duke football wins the ACC Championship. This is awesome.
Hi, everybody. Dick Vitale. Hey, make sure you listen, man. The Locked On Blue Devils with J.J. Jackson. He's awesome, baby.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into another episode of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is JJ Jackson. It's so great to have you here with us today on December 8th, 2025. Locked On Blue Devils is your one-stop shop where we discuss everything going on inside the life of Duke Athletics, and that is no different here today as we will recap the big Duke basketball win over Michigan State. We'll also talk about Duke football winning the ACC Championship. This conversation with Hugh Straine from Ball Durham joining us on the show as he does each and every week. If you haven't done so already, please be sure to follow and subscribe to Locked On Blue Devils for free, wherever it is that you get your podcasts. Leave us a 5-star rating and written review. Go ahead and take a moment, if you will, to like this video, share it with your friends, as all of your support that you do with us here at Locked On Blue Devils means so much as you watch us each and every day on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. We're continuing to grow our audience day by day, pushing closer to 5,000 subscribers on YouTube. Thanks for being a part of the journey with us here at Locked On Blue Devils. All right, so without further ado, Hugh Straine is here with us today, and we go into Saturday looking at a battle of the unbeatens between Duke and Michigan State, a true road game for the Blue Devils at the Breslin Center. And what do you know, Hugh? Once the game is over, once it's all said and done, Duke is still undefeated, 3-0 all-time there at Michigan State in true road games, which is very impressive. But more importantly, for this year's squad, they earn a hard-fought victory.
Yeah, Duke continues its dominance at the Breslin Center. I think the most impressive win of the season so far. First true road win over a ranked team for the Blue Devils. That's 4 ranked wins already, 5 high major games. Incredible bounce back in the second half after Duke was really killed defensively in the first half. Really could get nothing going outside of Boozer, and it kind of felt like the game where that was finally going to come back to bite him because it's happened all year and Duke was able to get away. But a really, really fantastic job defensively by Duke in the second half. Took Jackson Kohler out of the game, who killed Duke in pick and pop. Did really well on the glass, which was a big worry of mine because Michigan State's one of the best offensive rebounding teams in the country. But a really, really standout all-around performance after entering the halftime locker room down a couple of points, and a really, really, really impressive win that kind of cements Duke in that conversation for the best team in the country.
Yeah, there were runs throughout the course of the game that Duke certainly withstood, but what I thought was so fascinating about this game in particular, the largest lead on either side was Duke leading by 6. They led 10-4, and then they led 13-7, and then at the very end, they won by that 6-point margin, 66-60. The largest Michigan State lead was 5. I mean, that's an 11-point swing that this entire basketball game between two unbeatens was played. And Hugh, it really felt like, you mentioned switching to zone and all the various coverages Duke was going to, the way they were running off. It just felt like every single possession, watching it, you're on the edge of your seats because the game was played so closely.
Yeah, it really was just a fantastic game by 2 Final Four contenders. Duke had absolutely nothing going in the paint early. That big man duo of Jackson Kohler and Carson Cooper was causing a lot of problems down low. Duke was relying on the 3-point shot early, and it was falling early. And then Duke got cold from 3 and really had to figure some things out. But the pick and roll game was working really, really well. I thought Caleb Foster did a fantastic job on both ends of the floor in the second half. But again, led through Boozer. Boozer again had a much better second half than he did in the first half, which we've seen him do in a couple of Duke's high major games. But the pick and roll game worked well, and he did a really nice job getting to the foul line in the second half and just making life difficult for Cooper and Kohler down low. Really established himself, finished the game with 18 and 15. But the supporting cast still inconsistent offensively. I think Duke's still looking for that true second option, but I think definitely positive signs of growth. And to take a positive away, I mean, Duke's winning these games with some clear issues offensively, which is a scarier thing for the rest of the country, I think, than for Duke.
Absolutely. I mean, the fact that you're finding ways to win, and this offense can get better. That Jon Scheyer and his staff are just looking at film nonstop and trying to tweak and figure out ways to make this team more efficient. But at the end of the day, they're winning, and that's what matters there. I will get to the rotation in a moment because certainly have some thoughts there. All 5 starters for Duke played 25 or more minutes in this one. Taking a look at kind of the guys off the bench, everybody played. All 9 players played for Duke in this one. All 9 players even scored a bucket as this game unfolded. But for the Blue Devils, it was Cam Boozer who was held in check in the first half, and then 16 of his 18 total points came in the second half. Finished with your everyday 18.15 rebound, 5 assists performance. And in some ways, Hugh, I don't really know that he was held in check in that first half. Yes, it was just 2 points that he scored offensively, but he really wasn't that aggressive. Like, the shot totals really weren't that high for Cam either. Once Duke made a concerted effort to get him the basketball and said, Cam Boozer, go do what you do, that's when he really took over.
Yeah, I totally agree. For the first 10 to 12 minutes of the game, there was absolutely zero paint action going on from Duke. It was a lot of 5 out, really not really any attacking closeouts and trying to even get into the paint and work from the middle of the third of the floor. It was a lot of 3-point shots and a lot of outside work. And again, it worked early on. Duke was able to generate a bit of a lead with a hot start from outside, and then that cooled down. And through the end of the first half, it felt like Duke was in a bit of a hole because they just seemed stuck on what they were doing offensively. And you're right, Cam Boozer really just couldn't find a paint touch, couldn't really establish himself. And Michigan State made a really concerted effort to make his life difficult. The only reason Duke stayed in the game was because of elite defense, held Jeremy Fears in check, who might be the best passing guard in the entire country, and contributions on the other end of the floor from a couple of guys that you may not have expected it from that really just kept him in the game. But it led with defense once again. And then in the second half, Cameron Boozer did his thing offensively. Like you mentioned, JJ was 16 points and really made life difficult for the bigs, took Jackson Kohler out of the game, who didn't really do much down low in the first half, but it was either 4 or 5 pick and pop situations where Duke overhelped on every single one, no communication, the tag wasn't there, and Kohler slipped out for a 3, and I think he went 4 for 4, 4 for 5, one of the two. But in the second half, cleaned it up, contributions off the different action for Duke offensively, and eventually got it done. But a real grinded out game, 66-60. That's what's been Duke's last 2 high major games. But yeah, like we said, just with the glaring issues, really nice to see Duke kind of get out of this 10-0 start and look like one of the most dominant teams in the country with some really not so great offensive numbers.
Yeah, and the defense playing well. For you mentioned all the shots that Michigan State was making in the first half, but then what happens? They make adjustments on the defensive end. They switch to zone, and Michigan State goes into just a big funk and couldn't quite figure some things out there. Looking at this one in particular, Cam Boozer, just 4 total shots in the first half, and then really started to attack more offensively. 9 shot attempts in that second half, scoring 16 points. And again, 18, 5, and 15 is quite the line for Cameron Boozer when we're looking at this one unfolding here. All right, for Duke, Nikolas Khamenia, I thought, played one of his absolute best games in a Duke uniform. He's again in the starting lineup in place of Dame Sarr. Nick made 9 points in the first half. He made 3 3-point buckets, so scored 9, I should say, and then finished the game with 10, making a free throw there in the second half. But that was the big kind of spark Duke got. Also had 9 rebounds out of Khamenia. I thought he had a great game.
Yeah, both of those freshman wings and Sarr and Khamenia, Duke fans have kind of been waiting for one of them to break out and become that consistent starter and kind of fill that role on the offensive side of the ball. Both are elite defenders. Dame Sarr might be Duke's best defenders, but neither of them had really established himself on the offensive side of the ball. But Nick Khamenia looked really confident, really comfortable, thrived in the catch and shoot. He's always had a high basketball IQ, put his passing on display a little bit, and really, really, really aggressive on the defensive glass, which I'm sure was an aspect of the game that Jon Scheyer touched on heavily before the game, given how Duke had struggled on the defensive glass as of late, gave up 20 offensive rebounds to Florida, and then Michigan State is one of the best offensive rebounding teams in the country. So Khamenia did a great job on that, and again, looked great on defense. He can guard the 1 through 4 at times at 6'8". Really impressed with what I saw from him, assuming he's going to be the regular starter until he proves he shouldn't be, but looked a lot more comfortable, displayed his passing, can run the floor in the break. Really impressed with what I saw from Khamenia.
And that's what we're looking for, to look comfortable, to spread the basketball around to friends and teammates, and that's exactly what we saw Nick Khamenia do for this team, and Duke earns a very impressive 6-point victory over Michigan State. Let's dive into a little bit more of the win and so much more after we take our first time out here on today's show. Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. The World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994, and with 48 teams for the first time ever. It's going to be absolutely massive, but let's be honest, getting tickets is usually the hardest part. That's why the Game Time app is clutch, finally giving fans a real advantage when it comes to snagging seats. With Game Time, you could track price drops in real time, get alerts when great seats open, and buy tickets the moment that they hit the app. It gets the power back in your hands and makes going to the World Cup realistic instead of impossible. You can pull up the app. The layout makes it so simple to scroll through all the matchups, compare seat views, and also be able to pick the game section that you like and get it all locked in within minutes. It's not just World Cup tickets, though, however. They have tickets for sporting events, concert, comedy shows, and so much more. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the app, make an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today, as Game Time is a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. All right, getting set to move forward here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. Do want to let you know once again about our new Everydayer Club. That's right. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Devils your first listen of the day. If you're making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network in the world, you already live your team every day, but now you could take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club and get Locked On Blue Devils with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and so much more, all for just $5 a month or $50 a year. Go ahead and go to lockedonbluedevils.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes below to learn more. Hugh Straine from Ball Durham hanging out with us here on today's show, talking about this big victory for Duke over Michigan State. It was a battle of the unbeatens, a noon Eastern tip-off in the Breslin Center, and Duke stood tall at the very end. How about Caleb Foster, the all-around game once again that Duke got out of CFOS? Hits a big-time three-pointer late, goes to the free throw line and knocks down a pair of critical free throws at the very end. Just good stuff there from Caleb Foster, man.
Yeah, well, down the stretch, it was pretty similar action to what Scheyer ran when Isaiah Evans hit the big-time three to take down Florida, where it was a ball screen that Caleb Foster essentially just ghosted out of, and the help never came, no tag man. And Caleb Foster ghosted out of it, got open on the flare, and was able to knock it down. Not as pretty of shot,
Yeah.
It fell as Isaiah Evans, but went in either way. But, he's been inconsistent offensively, but he's really come out to play when Duke's needed him most in these big time games. I think he's been Duke's best perimeter defender all season. He's been extremely impressive, but just becoming such a good story around the sport when you're seeing a guy who had such a disappointment of a sophomore year come out as Duke's leader, and he's been a crucial part of this team down the stretch. Defensively, he looks like maybe the best defensive point in the country. He's an elite rebounder, and his scoring is getting so much more confident. He's been really efficient from three. Really love the lineups with him and Caden Boozer on the floor together because it allows Caleb Foster to be more of a scorer. But when he's facilitating the offense, he just plays so smart. It does not get sped up like I think he did a lot last year. And I think his maturity has gone up so much. And I'm just really impressed with what he's seen. And considering it's only early December, just so much more for him to grow. And I'm really excited.
You talked about defense a little bit there. Yeah, how about the work he did on Jeremy Fears Jr., who leads the country in assists, but also has had some pretty big scoring outputs for Michigan State. He did finish with 13 assists, which are just, again, eye-popping numbers from that point guard spot. But he could not get comfortable looking for his own shot offensively, and CFOS had a lot to do with that.
Yeah, went 0 for 10 from the field. Jeremy Fears had absolutely nothing going for him in really all game. I think in the first half at the free throw line with the expletive Cam Boozer chance, that probably got under Duke's skin a bit. Little bit of an immature play there from Fears, but Caleb Foster's made his life difficult. His ball pressure is so impressive, and he does such a good job of keeping his shoulders level and staying in front of guards regardless of what action they run. Jeremy Fears loves to kind of get his hip on the back of defenders and sort of keep him behind him as he surveys going to the basket, whether he's going to shoot or pass it. Also loves the mid-range game, and Caleb Foster just gave him absolutely nothing. Jeremy Fears is always going to get his assists off. He's just that talented of a passer, and it's really hard to stop a really good passer, but took him completely out of the scoring game. That's what Duke did with really a lot of Michigan State's key scorers, just made jump shooting so difficult, made the mid-range game so difficult, basically dared them to take outside shots, then clog the paint, sort of a drop coverage in the second half. And it worked to absolute perfection. But Caleb Foster's ball pressure was seriously impressive, and he's really developing into one of the best defending guards the country has to offer.
Yeah, how about those folks in the green and white, like you said there, for Michigan State fans who had some vulgar words to say towards Mr. Cam Boozer. And the highlight from this at the end of it is when it is Jeremy Fears kind of hyping the crowd up, getting them into it and that sort of thing. The clip looks so much better knowing the end result that Duke won this game. You know, and Duke basketball on their own social media accounts, putting a video out there afterwards of Caleb Foster and the team running back into the tunnel and fans just screaming who knows what at them as they're exiting. That's an amazing feeling. And that's, I know Coach K talked about that all throughout his coaching career. But, yeah, give us all of that, Hugh, when your team is able to go into a building like that and shut them up.
Yeah, I mean, hey, you're in a road environment. That's what's going to happen in big-time college hoops. I was watching the game, and I was watching it with one of my buddies, and Jeremy Fears was at the free throw line, chanting the crowd, and we couldn't hear the chant. So we were kind of confused. And then I saw it on Twitter later, and I was just like, geez, I was surprised Tom Izzo didn't chew Jeremy Fears out for that, but I'm sure he did later on. But something that definitely didn't age well for Jeremy Fears, and I think that's a moment he's probably going to learn to grow from because the crowd is allowed to do whatever they want. That's how the game works. That's how high-level sports work. But, I mean, makes the win that much sweeter for Duke, especially in such a hostile environment for the first time all season, which I do. Only one of Duke's 4 ranked wins has come at home. But a lot of these neutral site games are at professional arenas that really are very hard to get filled. But at the Breslin Center, it was the first true road environment in a high marquee matchup for most of these freshmen, including Cam Boozer. And I think the way they handle it is extremely impressive. It's really hard to do, regardless of how good Cam Boozer is. Hearing that constantly in your ear in your first true road environment.
It woke him up.
It must have. I mean, he took it really well. And,
yeah.
I mean, he's the best player in the country. I don't see a world where he's not the National Player of the Year favorite. The Ken Pom algorithm has him as a far and away favorite to take home the National Player of the Year award, but extremely impressive by such a young team. And again, the fact that it's early December and Duke's having all these successes, it's really, really scary for the rest of the country.
Yeah, it is. Keep it up. I mean, 10-0 with wins like this, and an aesthetic note to add as well. I was just thinking, as you were talking there, Hugh, about the visuals of all of this. Arkansas, Florida, Michigan State, Duke wearing the black uniforms in this. I mean, it was a big deal to wear all black at home against Florida. That just never happens. We had the conversation last, if they lose, you won't see something like that again. But man, it's business in black when Duke puts on that uniform. Some teams have performed way better in that uniform, which as fans, I know that we certainly love that look out of Duke. But when they show up in all black, man, it's not good for the other team so far this season.
Yeah, it's like the Tiger Woods red on Sunday that needs to always win doing that. But, it's not over. Duke's still, Duke's got their 4 ranked wins, but they've still got Texas Tech at Madison Square Garden in a huge, not home environment, but going to be probably filled with mostly Duke fans.
Yeah.
December 20th, then they've got to take on Michigan and DC in what is probably going to be the best game of the entire college basketball season. Duke versus Arkansas was the most watched college basketball game in a really long time. But Duke versus Michigan in DC is probably a matchup of the 2 most dominant teams the country has seen so far. Duke hasn't won by the extreme margins that Michigan has, but Duke has won. They've won their 4 ranked matchups by an average of over 8 points and really haven't been tested to the teeth, I don't think, quite yet. I think they were clearly better than every team they've faced, but with the elite front court, the number 1 transfer in the country, Yaxel Lenderborg against Cameron Boozer, I literally don't know if there's a better matchup you can come up with in college basketball. So, I mean, 10-0 start. Couldn't have asked for anything else. Duke jumped to number 3 in the AP poll, number 1 Arizona, number 2 Michigan. But Duke firmly in the conversation, be the number 1 team in the country. You can make that argument for any of those 3 teams. Just really impressed. Super excited for the rest of the non-con slate.
Yeah, I mean, 1 month into the season, that means guys like Joe Lunardi are already busy putting out bracketology. It doesn't surprise anyone at all. Duke right now on the 1 seed line, and again, haven't even played a conference game yet. We've got some time. Duke does not play again until Tuesday, December 16th. So the student athletes in all of this that are getting paid so much money these days, they'll have final exams and everything that they've got to sort of navigate through here over the next few days and such. But Duke's going to be in the gym. They're going to be getting ready for things, and excited to see Duke basketball back in action here shortly. All right, we've got to take one more break in the action today. And on the other side, how about Duke football winning the ACC? First time since 1989. All of that next. Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends at Omaha Steaks. The holidays come with two big goals: feeding people well and finding gifts they'll actually love. And when you want both handled in one move, Omaha Steaks is the way to go and do that. From hosting to gifting, they deliver the world's best steak experience right to your door. Because during their Sizzle All the Way sale, you could stock up and save in a huge way. 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. And it gets even better. Locked On College listeners get an extra $35 off with code COLLEGE at checkout. How about that? I just love Omaha Steaks. It is an easy gift. I love how easy it is. Shows up frozen, packed beautifully, ready to cook right away. They're perfectly aged and insanely tender. It's restaurant level at your home. So save big on gourmet gifts and more holiday favorites with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide during their Sizzle All the Way sale. And for an extra $35 off, use promo code COLLEGE, COLLEGE, at checkout. Terms apply. See site for details. omahasteaks.com, code COLLEGE. Omaha Steaks is a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. All right, Hugh Straine's hanging out with me here today, talking Duke football now. The Blue Devils beat Virginia in overtime as they win this one 27-20. The Blue Devils get an interception to close it out and win this thing. A game that went back and forth for a little bit. Duke got off to a much better start in this one. There wasn't a 31-3 deficit at the start of the fourth quarter like there was the first time that these two teams played out. We'll get to the game in just a moment, but just knowing that, Hugh, that Duke football now has won the conference championship. What a world, what a reality we're living in.
Yeah, heck of a Saturday. Massive road win for Duke hoops, and then first ACC championship in over 35 years for Duke football. But, you know, what I took away most was just how awesome of an end to a season and how impressive of a rebound it really was. After that Virginia game, it felt like the season was over. It was the most deflating loss of the season at home. It was their third loss to a ranked opponent at home of the season, just missed opportunity after missed opportunity. And Duke was able to come back against a team that is probably better than them and really just control the game for the entirety of the way. The game went to overtime, but Duke had a 20-10 lead late in that fourth quarter. In the final under 6 minutes, Virginia was able to come back, but an extremely impressive final performance from Duke, and just such a good way to end the campaign after a really, really disappointing sort of middle of it. And after that Virginia loss, just nothing more deflating, but really happy for the Duke team, really happy for Manny Diaz. He deserved it. I think he's done a fantastic job through his now 2 seasons as Duke's head coach. And after that, and after seeing kind of the culture that Duke's built, I think that's going to give them a lot of leverage in the transfer portal this offseason, should Manny Diaz elect to take that route heavily. Just really impressed with how Duke handled the end of the season. 3 straight victories. You would have liked to see him in the college football playoff, but what are you going to do? A conference title probably means a lot more to this fan base than a bid to the CFP. Really, really impressed how the end of the season. Super happy for Diaz and for Darian Mensah, who was really waiting all season to get on the national radar, and he just did it against Virginia.
Yeah, I mean, the ACC ultimately does get their conference team in, as Miami made it into the college football playoff. But we'll leave that aside. I don't want to have that discussion today. I could save that for a little bit later. I want to celebrate this win for Duke and what they were able to do on the football field, making play after play. You're watching this game unfold. The ACC Championship had never gone to overtime before. That happens for the first time ever. They showed the stat going into halftime that the team leading at halftime had won every single conference title game in the history of the ACC champion. So when you're going to overtime, you're thinking about those numbers if you're Duke, and or fans, I should say, the players so locked in and probably well aware or unaware of those things. And it just felt like this isn't going to go Duke's way after the game was tied up in the fashion in which it was. There was kind of a freshman mistake by Nate Shepard running out of bounds when you want to just stay in and keep the clock moving, so that Virginia is forced to use their timeouts, and credit to them for putting together a 96-yard drive at the end of it. but the touchdown pass at the end, the wide receiver for Virginia very clearly went out of bounds. I do not know how still that ended up being a touchdown for the Cavaliers. But again, Duke withstood all of that, man. They got the ball first, which is a little bit more pressure on you, and found a way to come through and get the win.
Yeah, it felt for 3.5 quarters, everything that could have went right for Duke went right. And then the final, just under 6 minutes, everything that went wrong could have went wrong. I'm with you, JJ. I did not think the receiver established position back in bounds again. I was super
not even almost.
it felt like a really easy call, but then again, I am not an official in the NFL or at the college level, but again, just so impressive and really just a testament to how this Duke team handled the entire season. You get punched in the teeth. You're 6 minutes away from an ACC title, your first in almost 35 years. You give up the lead, and then just a fantastic game plan in that overtime period. An awesome play drawn up on that 4th and goal to get Jeremiah Hazley wide open. Really, really nice composure from Darian Mensah. And then you hardly even have to play defense. On the first day, Luke Murgott, heck of an interception, and really such a poetic way to end the season after Duke was just punched in the face all season again and again. The fans are losing it. The players just don't know what's going on. I mean, at the end of the day, 7-5 heading into the ACC Championship, regardless if they were there or not, was not what Duke fans were expecting. Yeah. And for the Blue Devils to come out after how they were utterly embarrassed at home against Virginia early in the season and get a win like that, especially in overtime when it was in their destiny, I thought it was really, really impressive and really inspiring for next season. And I think it's going to propel this Duke team into, some really serious playoff considerations a year from now.
It was bonkers how good this entire year, and I want to get back to the game here as well, Duke's offense was on 4th down. It doesn't make sense, man. On 4th down, they were better than they were on 3rd down. And some of the calls throughout the year, obviously we're talking about how gutsy they are for Manny Diaz. Even in a spot like that, I get how, you're inside the 5 on overtime. They're on 4th down, but there's definitely an argument to be made for taking the points and, leaving it up to your defense a little bit to get the stop. Although how that last drive went, the defense was clearly tired and Virginia was starting to figure some things out. So the offense, certainly people felt more confident in than Duke throughout the year. So I get it from that perspective for Manny Diaz. But still, man, it takes a lot of cojones to make a call like that. And there was no fear whatsoever in Manny Diaz making that decision.
Yeah, I mean, I think Duke kind of entered that game with a nothing-to-lose mindset because they really didn't have anything to lose. No one was really expecting anything from him. And we've seen it from Manny Diaz all season. He's extremely aggressive. We saw it against Clemson, and we saw it in the ACC Championship on Saturday night. It's one of those calls where if you get it, you look like a genius. If you don't, you look like an idiot. And after a 96-play drive where the defense would have to get back on the field fairly quickly, Diaz gambled, and it ended up paying off, and the defense really didn't have to play that much defense, like we just mentioned.
One play.
Yeah, literally one play. And but heck of a play call. It worked. It was a great survey by Darian Mensah, creating space and extending the play. And, it worked out. It's just one of those plays that you're really going to watch forever. And it's probably going to be hung up somewhere in the Duke practice facility, but really no better way to end it off. And, at that point in the ACC Championship, you're in overtime. You have nothing to lose. I agreed with the call. I thought you might as well go for it. At this point, who cares?
Yeah.
But I thought it was a fantastic end of the game and just super happy for this Duke team once again.
There just certainly are a lot of coaches who would not make a call like that. I mean, you look at the whole thing, it results in a roughing the passer call against Darian Mensah. So should that ball have been incomplete or any other outcome than, catching the touchdown, as we saw Hazley do, you would have been able to get an automatic first down there half the distance. The goal, you would have been set up in a good spot again to try and possibly run that thing in. But instead, we learned that you can, in fact, enforce where they start in overtime, right? I mean, that was a whole new experience for us. And so I think in some ways that impacted the call from Virginia as well. There on their first play. It was only one play that they ran, but the double pass that resulted in the interception there by Duke. If they're starting from the 25 instead of the 40, I don't know that Virginia makes a call like that, Hugh.
Yeah, well, it almost looked like a broken play. Chandler Morris backed out of the pocket pretty quickly. It almost looked like a Hail Mary type throw. Yeah. But you're right, JJ. Definitely had a lot of implications on that roughing the passer call, but it ended up working in Duke's favor. But I don't know if that play was exactly what Virginia drew up, whether it was or it wasn't. It doesn't matter at this point. It was a heck of a play by Murgot. It wasn't a bad throw by any means by Chandler Morris. But that play definitely had a lot of implications and definitely worked in the favor of Duke in the end of it. But at the end of the day, Duke made the plays down the stretch to get the job done, both on offense and on defense. And, like we said, after getting kicked in the teeth in that last 6 minutes, the composure to stay poised and get it done is exactly how you want to finish the season off. And again, 3 straight wins, 8-5 record, a bowl berth. Really, really after, disappointing beginning of the season with so many deflating losses, you just couldn't have ended it any better way.
All right, so now Duke football does get to head to the postseason. They will be playing in the Sun Bowl. It's sponsored by Tony the Tiger now. So Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl on New Year's Eve, 2 p.m. Eastern. Duke will take on Arizona State. Arizona State was in the college football playoff a season ago, had some injuries this year. Their coach, Kenny Dillingham, has done a good job leading that program. So 1 game left to go. I say all that to say we've got some time until Duke football's back in action. You'll start to hear some players plan to enter the transfer portal, Hugh. But important to let people know, the portal's not officially open yet. Like, there's not movement that has started yet officially. They're going to wait a little while, which is smart with this calendar that still needs to be tweaked and whatnot. And then, like we said a while back, we got several days until Duke basketball is back in action. A long way for me to set you up here, but this is the perfect time for people to go check out Ball Durham and all your work.
Yeah, thanks, JJ. I'm the site expert over at balldurham.com, powered by Fansided, spelled BALLDURHAM.com. We got everything you guys need: Duke football, basketball, whatever it might be, recruiting, guys in the pros now. Any news, stay up to date with us and with all Duke news you could possibly need. Subscribe to our newsletter. Always appreciate the time, JJ, and go check us out at Ball Durham.
Will do. All right, Hugh, I'll see you again soon, okay?
Appreciate it, JJ. Have a good one.
That's Hugh Straine from Ball Durham joining us here on today's episode of Locked on Blue Devils. Appreciate that guy and all the hard work that he does and joining us each and every week here on Locked on Blue Devils. What a win for Duke Hoops. What a win for Duke football. Thank you again so much today for tuning in to Locked on Blue Devils. Another big show coming up tomorrow, breaking down these wins and so much more. Make sure you subscribe and follow our podcast for free so you get all of the latest episodes. Follow us on X at LO_Blue Devils. We're on Instagram and TikTok as well. Question for you. Did Locked on Blue Devils make your Spotify Wrapped? Well, prove it on social media to secure a free month of our brand new Everydayer Club. Just tag our national Locked on Podcast Network account on any social media platform and we'll drop you a code. Be one of the first to join the Everydayer Club to get your favorite show ad-free and exclusive access to the members-only Discord. For those of you on video, we want to send you to our first ever 24/7 national Locked on Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make sure that you check out your second listen today, Locked on Sports Today. As always, go Duke. I'll talk to you again tomorrow. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you and good day.